Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, January 23rd. Yes, that's right. We're 3 weeks into the new year, which means we're only 1 week away from being 1/12 of the way through the year. If you're not hitting your goals, if you're not on track, if you're not doing the things that you need to do, prospecting and closing business, then you're missing the boat, because the last thing you want to do is wait till the end of the year and then figure out you're not going to hit your goals. At any rate, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations all over the world to help them increase their sales. And if you've joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception, my friend. Today's coach is a transformative coach who specializes in helping entrepreneurs break through the drama. Break through trauma-driven behavioral patterns. Her work emphasizes personal empowerment, improved decision-making, and leadership growth. She's the CEO of North Star Leadership. Please welcome Annie Yatch. Good morning, Annie.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I'm glad that you're here, absolutely, positively. And before we get going, could you maybe give us the 2 to 3 minute version of your background?
Sure, of course. So I started off in counterterrorism, actually went to Georgetown University for the School of Foreign Service, thought I would go CIA, ended up working for the Defense Intelligence Agency, and then became very entrepreneurial once I realized that there's a whole lot of information in the world that if we just had it as entrepreneurs, it would make us even better at our businesses, at our family life situations, and also just out in the world in general. So that is a little bit of the background. Ended up being an entrepreneur, ran 3 companies, and now a private coach for high net worth individuals as well as entrepreneurs who are out there killing it.
Wow, cool. Now, one of the things that fascinates me about you, one of the many things besides your gorgeous hair, is I know... Well, I don't have not a lot of locks going on there.
I've heard it a lot. Everyone's always like, that hair, man.
There's a networking associate that I have who lives in the same town that I do. I live in Long Beach, and she's just got great hair like you. And I always say, best hair in Long Beach. Absolutely awesome. Anyways, I want to ask you about this because I find it fascinating. I am fascinated by Navy SEALs. And I don't think I'm alone when I say, as a male, that the Navy SEALs, they just rule. I never made a commitment like that or did the work that they do to become Navy SEALs. But in my mind, I always wanted to be the type of guy who in a fight could defend himself or defend his family, not back down, like a wimp. A lot of the work you do seems to be based on SEAL training. So what is it about that? By the way, I love every movie about SEALs, every TV show about SEAls. So what is it about the SEALs for you?
Well, honestly, when I first got into the world of counterterrorism, the only thing I knew about the SEALs was that they were the most elite military unit that the United States had. And so that fascinated me right off the bat, because I was like, okay, if we've got the most elite team in the world, what can I learn from the most elite team? And really, as I started getting to know, and I worked with a lot of SEALs, not necessarily, I wasn't in SEAL training, women can't be SEAls, but what I did was I met so many SEALs in one part of my occupation that I started to watch for the patterns, and I started to ask them questions about, okay, how do you guys plan these impossible missions, and how do you actually succeed almost 100% of the time? And I started backwards engineering how their minds worked, how their processes worked, their systems, their structures, their mindsets, because I figured if we can bottle this stuff up for normal people, it would give us that edge, that mental edge that everyone's looking for. So that's what really intrigued me about the SEALs. And as I started to learn more about them, the biggest thing that I realized is that they really have the ability to bring people together in a powerful way. So you know how, like, for most of us in business, we will try to plan based on goals or strategy or tactics. Well, the SEALs don't necessarily do that. When they start to plan an impossible mission, they plan based on the emotional state that they most want to create for their team when they are successful. And so I thought about that. I'm like, wow, what if we could reset in business and take this emotional state concept and get all of our teams more involved emotionally in the outcome rather than just the metrics or the tactics or the strategy. And I started using that with businesses, and we see much bigger change and much better results with companies because of that emotional state focus. That's just one example of how fascinating the SEALs are.
So,
yes.
Yes. So first of all, my mind is blown because now you're telling me Demi Moore was not really a Navy SEAL because she's a woman. Okay.
I know. Right. She looked really good in that film, though. I got to tell you.
She sure did.
Wow.
She looked like she should kick my butt. Absolutely.
Yes, mine too.
So you're talking about the emotional state they're in when they complete the mission, isn't? Well, I guess I don't. Is it relief? Is it joy? Is it celebration? I mean, what's
It's
going
all
on?
of those things. Sometimes it's relief, sometimes it's joy to be going back home to their family units. Sometimes it's the loyalty feeling of like we did this together as a brotherhood. I just loved that concept of let's put everything into that emotional state and use that to drive motivation, to drive results, to drive action, rather than trying to get people excited about, oh, we're taking the company from 2 million to 5 million in revenue. That doesn't usually like emotionally charge people up unless they're money motivated.
Gotcha. Now, one of the things that I think just about everybody, at least I know about the SEALs, is that they go through just this intense training that is insane. I don't know what the dropout rate is, but I think it's incredibly high. And I know they have to sit in the ocean. I mean, they just do crazy stuff. Does any of that come into this? Does any of that apply to your work?
Well, I think doing hard things is really important for us as entrepreneurs because it expands our mental, emotional, and self regulation capacity. So, I might not say, hey, Jeff, we're going to go get in the freezing cold water and stay in it for hours. But what I might say is, hey, we got to do more hard things in our lives to really expand our brain's capacity and also our body's capacity to do more. Because I think that's a really amazing thing that they've been able to train their bodies to. Not one SEAL that I've ever met thinks that he can't do something. He's like, if anyone can do it, I can do it. I'm going to figure it out, which I love about them.
Yeah, I like that too. And I promise I'm not going to spend the entire hour asking about the SEALs. But oh, now I forgot the question. I just came up. All right, we'll move on. There was something else about the SEALs. All right, we'll figure it out. So you work with high performers.
I do.
What are some of the characteristics of high performers?
So one of the things that I've realized about high performers is that they have very high internal standards, right? So their standard of performance for themselves is up here. Also, they take on a lot of responsibility. The weight of the world is almost always on their shoulders, and they always think that they can do it at the absolute best. And so it's almost like this over responsibility that I see in almost everybody I've ever coached. And for they tend to become the default fixer or problem solver with every team they're ever a part of. And that puts a lot of pressure on people because once you're really good at problem solving and putting out fires, people tend to want you to keep doing that instead of being more actively engaged in different parts of the business. So they tend to get stuck in that fix it problem solver mode.
Sorry, I'm nodding because I'm seeing myself because I am one of those fix-it guys. Give me your problem. Here's how you do it. My sister and I are dealing with my mom who's got Alzheimer's and stuff like that. And, she unfortunately for her is in Las Vegas with my mom. I'm in New York. So she has to do most of the work, which it hurts me that I'm not there to help her, but she's constantly calling me because I'm kind of the calmer person and that kind of thing. And I'm more logical and it is the fixer. And I do notice every time it's like, okay, here's what you should do. Then 10 seconds later, it's okay. Now what do I do? So do we train people to not think for themselves when we're the fixer?
We actually do. And that's one of the biggest gaps that I find with entrepreneurs. So I'm going to drop a little bit of a mic drop moment here. The thing that I want all entrepreneurs who are listening to think about is the fact that if you've thought in your head at any point in time, this is just common sense. Why can't this person figure it out? That's actually not true. Whatever you think is common sense is actually your particular form of genius as an entrepreneur. What you think is common sense is not common sense for anybody else. So it's important that you really dive into how your common sense is actually your genius zone and you start bringing that out into the world a little bit more often. Because most entrepreneurs, they do not communicate their standard of performance with their team. And so the team can never meet them because they hold it inside thinking it's just common sense that everybody has because they don't value that part of themselves.
Amazing. I just remembered my question, my other question about the SEALs, and I have to go back to it. It's not just physical training. Isn't it mostly mind? I mean, what gives you the ability to stay in freezing cold water for hours when the waves are crashing over your head is not your body. It's commitment and just the mindset. Yes.
Well, I think it's mindset, but when we went back and I did a lot of work on this because I was so fascinated by like, how are these young guys, like how are some making it? How are the others not making it, right? Because you could get a kid from the middle of Iowa who didn't know how to swim, who is more likely to make it through as a SEAL team guy in those high attrition BUDS trainings versus a guy who was an Ironman who would come into the training, right? So that little kid from Podunk, Iowa, who had never seen water, who had never even been a swimmer, somehow made it through. But the guy who was the Ironman didn't. That just fascinated me. But what I discovered and what I learned from talking to a lot of these SEALs is that it really goes back to this concept of self-regulation. And self-regulation is the ability to mentally, emotionally, and physically manage yourself. So while yes, there is an emotional and mental component, the physical is also linked into that. And what I tell people is I'm like, if you want to get to be a high level performer, even past where you are right now, you have to focus a lot more on this concept of self regulation, managing yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically. And most people do not have the emotional mastery to get themselves to that level because they focused on the physical or the intellectual, logical.
And how much of that is taking responsibility? I'm responsible for my choices, the things. Does that play a part of it?
I think ownership is big. I mean, for any of us that read Jocko's book, right? Jocko Willink's book, The Other Seal, like extreme ownership is important. We have to look at ourselves. If we don't look at ourselves, we're missing the biggest gap that we can overcome. So I would agree with that. I do think, though, that mindset is a big part of it, right? Like that podunk kid out of Iowa who had never swum and who's been lifting hay every day. He's just like, it's just another day where I suck at everything. And that mentality, as weird as that sounds, he will make it through because he's just sucking for another day, right? Versus an Ironman guy who's like the top of the pack, always winning. He goes into that environment. All of a sudden, he's not winning now. His whole body shuts down because it's like, oh my God, I'm not winning. I'm not the best. I'm not doing as good as I should be. It really messes with the mind.
Mm. I'm sorry to keep flipping around because you say things and then I remember I want to talk about you mentioned, that's your genius. And I can't tell you how often I'm coaching somebody or training people and I'm going, how do you not know this? How could you possibly not know this? Thank goodness they don't, because that's how I get paid. But it is constantly that. And that actually is I'm not calling myself a genius, but my area of expertise is the stuff that I can't believe they don't know. So I get it completely. Let's talk. I know you work mostly with leaders. Why are most leaders burnt out? What's the cause?
This is the thing that everyone is starting to now focus on. The cause of burnout for leaders is because they've been using a survival-based operating system. What this means is that they've been running off of fight or flight in their nervous system, which hijacks their ability to make decisions in a calm way. Almost every decision feels urgent. The other thing that happens is they've got this fear that is running a lot of their programming from when they were a young kid. So what most people don't know, and I always joke about this with CEOs when I meet them, because they'll say, I know you all think that you're the CEO of your business, but it's not actually you. It's the 7-year-old version of you that decided something was true, that has stuck with you, and you've been replaying the same pattern over and over again. So most leaders are burned out because they're in survival leadership, and they don't even realize the impact their nervous system is having on their ability to lead and run their teams.
So are you talking about we're still operating out of lizard brain?
Well, I mean, a lot of people would say that, right? That we're still operating out of the lizard brain. But I think it's just because our subconscious brain runs 11 million data points a second, and most of those data points were built from an illogical 7 to 10-year-old brain. We're running a lot of patterns that are outdated. Like we wouldn't hand somebody a iPhone 13 and expect them to do the same things that they can with the iPhone 17, right? But that's what we're doing as human beings. We're running an old program that's outdated, and that program is running us and running our businesses. And that's why we get capped at certain levels of revenue. It's not because we're not good enough or we don't have the right program or we don't have the right system. It's honestly because there's something in us that is holding us back from breaking through based on that old programming.
And am I correct? That's not just in business. It's all, we're all operating that way. I mean, years ago, I was introduced to, and I love this title. She was a psychic psychiatrist, and
Ooh.
I love woo-woo stuff. So I went and did a session with her. It was amazing. I mean, simply, I wish I had the time to describe it to you. We don't have enough time, but it was just amazing. Revelation after, in fact, she recorded the session, and it was, I think, 15 years later before I was willing to even listen to it, because the things that she said to me were so, come on, that can't possibly be true. But she said the same exact thing. Jeff, everybody's operating on stuff that happened to them before the age of 8.
Correct.
And we become robots. We're programmed by the age of 8. And unless we somehow train ourselves, or I don't know what you have to do, but to break free from those 6 or 5-year-old thoughts, because we're not 5 years old, but we're operating as if that, yes?
Correct. 100%. Dead on. That is accurate.
Yeah. So leaders are burnt out. What happens when a sales leader, especially, because I'm mostly, I'm interested in all leaders, but especially sales leaders, because that's my area of expertise. What happens when they actually calm their nervous system, and what happens then?
Well, the things that I've seen is that, number one, they make better decisions and they pull in more deals. Like I consistently get texts from some of the clients I work with, and they're like, We got 3 more deals this week. I got 3 more deals today. You like the deals they're able to make happen from energy and all these things being adjusted. It's amazing to watch. So it basically brings your prefrontal cortex back online, and that's going to improve your strategic thinking. It's going to improve your ability to negotiate price because you're going to be reacting from a place of neutrality instead of that panic or scarcity. So that's one aspect. I do think they also have a much cleaner presence with people. So their calm energy will co-regulate with the other person's energy in the room, and people are more likely then to feel the connection that makes them want to buy that emotional piece. And then I also think, when the nervous system's calm, leaders don't feel like they're in this constant push of energy. The energy feels easy. It feels like the deals show up before they even do anything. It feels like they close the deals without having to do as much. Most of the clients I've worked with tell me that they feel like they have 40 to 50% more energy, even though they're getting more deals done.
Huh.
So they're not driving themselves into the ground with the hustle and the grind.
Yeah, I'm just curious about this because I'm betting that this is the same thing for you, although I could be wrong. My coach, when I first started working with her, when I was talking to her about working with her, said, look, Jeff, if you're coming to me to make more money, don't bother. That's not what I'm about. I'm about helping you be the best version of yourself. But everybody who works with me makes more money. And it was 100% true. Of course, I want to be the best version of myself, and I wanted to make more money. And miracles happened from working with this amazing woman. Again, I could go on and on about that. And I did make more money. And am I correct that your goal is not to help people make more money? It's to help them be the best leader they can be?
Yep. My goal is it's basically to optimize every part of their brain that allows them to get out of the old patterning. Right. And so they will make more money for sure. They will, I would say, break through that revenue ceiling. That's an obvious win. But I think the bigger win that I see with people is that they start feeling more connected to their own inner authority, right? So they become their own guru. I'm so tired of everybody thinking we have to find like all this learning and knowledge outside of ourselves. There's so much internally that people start to have much more self-trust. They believe their own inner authority again, and they start making decisions from that clarity. And I think that is what really changes the game when it comes to bringing in more money, right? Like it's great to have more money, but I'd rather you have a better relationship with yourself and a better relationship with the people that you actually love. And that typically will also enhance the money that you make.
Got it. And how often do you, maybe this is common, how often do leaders think they've got to get everything done themselves? And I'm asking because I've managed sales teams of up to 45 people, and I would walk around, and this was an inside sales team, so I'd walk around plugging my earphones so I could listen to their conversations, and it was everything I could do to stop myself from grabbing the phone out of their hands most of the time, go, let me show you how to do this, which I probably would have closed a deal that they might not have, but it doesn't help them really. It's the teach a man to fish and that kind of thing. So is that common for leaders?
It's very common for high performing leaders, right? Because we've been taught our whole lives that we're the only ones that can fix this thing. And we've enabled our teams to believe that we need to jump back in to save them. So one of the biggest things I'll notice with companies and CEOs that I work with, and it doesn't matter how much money the company's making, whether it's 2 million or 1.2 billion, right? The CEO that constantly jumps back in because he needs to prove to himself that he can solve these problems and stay in fix-it mode, it throws the entire dynamic of the team off. So it's really more about inviting the team members into problem-solving mode with you and not giving them the answer, allowing them to come to you first, because we're trying to build in the team a way of thinking that is similar to yours so that they can think that way. Instead of, what we see most often is we have all these people jumping in to save the people that aren't really truly learning then. And we have to look at failure differently. Mistakes are not a problem. Mistakes are great. We want people to make as many mistakes, fail as quick as possible, because then they're going to learn a lot faster.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I always check out people's LinkedIn posts, and you recently commented on somebody else's post that was congratulating people who fail, which is not a typical thing. Usually it's not, oh, great job, you failed, awesome. So why should people congratulate failure?
Well, we want people to congratulate failure because it builds a culture of compassion and understanding, right? And again, most people will perform at a higher level if they're out of fight or flight. And so if you can get somebody on your team to be excited about the moments when they fail and move through them much faster, you don't lose productivity in the person. You get a person out of defensiveness really quickly. We basically want people to stop taking everything so personally. And the only way to do that is to look at mistakes and failures as we're either winning or we're learning. That's it. Doesn't matter. We just got to move through it quickly.
I say that all the time. On every single deal, I either win or I learn. So I get it. Yeah. So in other words, as a leader, we're training people to need us. If we're
Yes.
not, if we're
But
not delegating, if
a
we're
lot
not
of
letting them
high performers do. And that's one of the biggest gaps that I see that needs to be filled. We need to stop training people to need us. We need to train people to think in a contingency planning method so that they can contingency plan just as well as we can. And again, it goes back to the common sense thing, right? We have to stop assuming that our genius is common sense, and we have to start teaching what we consider to be common sense to our teams so that the teams can learn to think the way we do. Because all entrepreneurs always say to me, like, I don't understand why my team doesn't think the way I do. I'm like, well, they don't have your background of experience or your background of understanding. And if you want them to think like you actually have to identify what your methodology is. What are these pieces of genius that only you can teach your team? And then you get to teach your team from that perspective.
So how much a part of it is, well, if I teach them, then they won't need me. And what value do I have if they don't need me? Is that right? Or
Well, for some people, it definitely goes back to that, right? Because a little kid who is 7 years old might have thought, oh, my parents are fighting. I need to be the peacemaker to make sure that everybody's happy. And if everybody's happy, then it'll be good. So that little kid learns how to jump in to be the peacemaker, which is in essence what that little kid would do in business. I'm going to jump in, I'm going to solve it for everybody, and then everything's going to be fine. But that's an old program, right?
sorry, again, smiling because you keep talking about me. You know, my parents were divorced. My father was insane, and don't hurt mommy. Stuff like that. So yeah, I get it. What do you mean when you say we need to see what the deepest lie is? What's the deepest lie, and what do you mean by that?
Well, what I've found is that in that age range of the 7-year-old, there's always some, I call it the lie. There's some lie that this little kid inside of us creates based on everything that's going around us. So say you're that little kid and the parents are getting a divorce, so they're fighting all the time. A little kid might decide, I have to be perfect, otherwise I'm not safe. Or I have to be the peacemaker, otherwise my family will always be fighting. So there's something that you tell yourself that in the moment you believe is true, and you're like, I'm going to hold on to this because this is how I survive this difficult, chaotic environment that I'm in. Well, that thing that you tell yourself as a 7-year-old, you believe it's the truth. But as you grow up and those 11 million data points of the subconscious run that truth every single day, you now start to believe that everything is that way. And what I do when I work with people is I go in to find that truth that is actually the biggest lie that's been holding you back your whole life. So I say we have to go after the lie because we don't know that it's actually harming us. Most people can't even find their own lie because who has time to rifle through the 11 million data points of the subconscious mind? I certainly don't, but I've gotten really good at finding the pattern, and I can sometimes just listen to somebody talk and I'll hear them say this pattern and I'll say it out loud to them and they're like, oh my God, I haven't thought about that for 30 years. And that's how we get the breakthrough, right? We want to go back to that root decision or that root thought process that changed their thought patterning. We want to find it, discover it, and then we want to show them how it's not true anymore. It was the biggest lie that limited their life, and now we get to break through it and let it go.
And I'm going to guess it's not as simple as you showing. So what's your biggest lie? I mean, it takes work. It takes work for people to realize what their big lie is, right?
Yep. Usually I can get people to see it in about 45 minutes to an hour. And I do that because I think I've done this for the last 15 years, so I can have a conversation, I can hear it, but it's not important for me to hear it. It's important for the person to get there on their own. And so within that 45 minutes of the first call I ever do with someone, we look at what is the lowest point of your life? What is the highest point of your life? And what is the pattern that connects those two things? And it's very hard for people to be able to vocalize that, because if you could, then your subconscious wouldn't be doing its job, because your subconscious likes to keep you safe and it likes to protect you from the one thing that would be the game-changing move in your life.
Damn brain.
We have to still love our brains. We have to be like, all right, subconscious, I'm so glad that this is happening. Show me this pattern more so that I can overcome it.
Yeah. Sorry, as you were talking, I'm going, lowest point of my life, highest point. That takes some work.
Takes some work. It takes some time to just think through some of the reasons why those different aspects happened in your life. But it's fascinating. So cool.
Annie, I know you have a big announcement coming up any day. Would you like to break it here?
Sure. I'd love to tell you a little bit more. Basically, after 15 years of doing this and many, many requests, I am launching a new program for leaders, specifically to help them learn how to manage the survival level leadership and to gain back their authority. So it's a combination. It's basically just 90 days. So it's not a huge time commitment, but it's all experiential. So all the calls are done in an experiential way where we are doing the work on the calls. There's no homework, but it's just a way for people to get a massive shift with regards to more energy output. Because, most of us these days feel exhausted. Everyone's doing all these different things. And we're like, we can't work more. What are we missing? Right? There's a fast track to not working more, doing less, but making more happen in your world. So I'm going to cover a bunch of that. And I'm also going to help people amplify their own leadership and their own authority. Because again, like I said at the beginning, we don't have to look outside of ourselves for all the answers. We don't have to buy another program or another membership or enter another mastermind. We have to build our own inner authority, and that inner authority that helps us walk into every room knowing we're one of the most respected leaders in that room.
Hmm. Well, your social post did a good job, because something big is coming. Check it out, 2 days. And I was like, I got to ask about that. You got me curious. Well done. You say that strong leadership isn't about hustle, and typically leaders do hustle, but you say it's about regulation, and you kind of alluded to this before. So what are we regulating, and how do we regulate it?
Well, I think the first thing that we all have to regulate, again, is going back to, we have to figure out what's that root story that you're telling yourself, right? So if we don't identify that root story, we can't change our behavior. Then once we know the root story, then we work on regulating ourselves. How do we master our emotions? How do we engage our body and our I guess that intelligence of the body to move us forward? And then how do we boost our neurochemistry to help us take all of our thinking to a new neural pathway? Because again, right, a lot of that 7-year-old thought process is stuck in an old neural pathway that's really low. It's down here, and we want to boost ourselves to this higher place with our neurochemistry. So when I work with people on self-regulation, we're covering the emotional mastery piece. We're covering, how do I regulate myself physically in my body so that my body can produce more for me and I have more capacity. And then we start boosting the neurochemistry so that you have more serotonin, more oxytocin, more dopamine, so it feels easier to do things that used to feel like a heavier lift.
And what you're talking about are what are typically referred to as the happy chemicals, right?
All the good happy chemicals, yes.
Yeah. And I know I'm not a runner, but I read running produces the happy chemicals. So do you teach people to do things besides run that help them boost their serotonin levels?
100%. So I used to be a runner, but the runner's high wasn't as good as the high that you get from either supporting people, helping people have a transformation. And what I found a company about 7 years ago, and they calm the nervous system at such a rapid rate and so organically that when you calm your nervous system, your body will naturally start producing more serotonin, more oxytocin, more dopamine. And so what I like to do is I weave in some of their products, because it's the quickest fix I've found to boost your neural pathway and to boost your neurochemistry at the same time. And that helps people to find their lies or to find their issues that are going on subconsciously much faster. So that's been a really cool component of the work that I do that I'm not sure many other people do, because I don't think they found this company before. But it is the most incredible thing to watch a gentleman. Like I had one gentleman last week. He called me. He's like, Annie, this is crazy. I've only been on this stuff for about 3 months. He's like, but I have for the first time been able to go from buying only 50 homes. He's a real estate guy. He's like, now I've bought 132 units and I've worked 40% less. He's like, this is wild, the clarity that I'm having. And he changed his entire business. He got out of doing a lot of the busy work that was linked to his nervous system being off. He closed down a bunch of different things that he was participating in, and now he's hyper-focused on moving himself forward. So he has a totally new game plan for going after a $20 million empire this year.
Wow. And if I'm hearing you right, it's not mental stuff. There's some pills or supplements or something that he's taking?
Yep, there's a supplement. It's a microbiotic intelligence technology. And so you spray it. I actually have one of the bottles here. I use it before calls sometimes if I get a little bit stressed. This one is the one that releases cortisol. So you can spray it in your mouth, real simple, just like, and then within a couple of minutes, you feel your whole nervous system calm. It's pretty beautiful.
Wow.
I know. And it looks like nothing. It tastes like water, looks like water. Everyone's like, is this water? And I'm like, why don't you try it? They try it and they're like, this is not water. I'm like, I know.
And is this something you sell, or you refer people to?
I don't sell it. I just met the company owner about 7 years ago. And, all my clients have asked me, like, how did your energy go from next to nothing to this boundless, effervescent, like loving way of being? I'm like, well, I've changed what I put into my body. And this is one of the things that I changed. So when anybody works with me in this Authority Shift program, they get access to all the hacks that I've created over the last 15 years. So it's exciting for me because finally I can just give everyone everything at once and be like, here we go, let's roll. Let's do 90 days of like complete transformation together and bring it to a new state.
Love that. And I'm not looking to take away anything that you're making money on, but are you willing to give the name of the company, or is this a product we can get through you or something?
I'm happy to share it. I'm happy to share it. The company's name is biometech.com. And if you look
BIOME?
BIOMETECH.com. They've been around for about 30 years, very unknown. But what I would strongly suggest is if you're thinking about optimizing your neurochemistry, start with the calming. You want to start with the calming kit. I can't remember what it's called, but if anybody wants to DM me on Instagram and they see this, recording, I will 100% help you get more information on it. And that way you're setting yourself up for success.
I've got a million personal questions now, so we're going to get there. You talked about mastering your emotions before. That does not mean you never get upset, does it, or does it?
No, it doesn't mean you never get upset. What it means is the time frame between when you get upset and when you can be productive again and be back in that high level of focus is 5 to 10 minutes. Because most of us will get upset about something, we'll ruminate on it. It'll take us on a whole mental journey down a massive rabbit hole. And next thing we know, it's 2 days later and we haven't accomplished our biggest task or objective. So I like to tell people, I'm like, when you start with me, you might take a day, you might take 2 days to clear stuff. But by the time we're done working together after a couple of months, it'll take you 5 minutes to reset or reframe your emotional state. And that's a pretty big win because again, right, as entrepreneurs, we don't have time to be off center. We have to be as focused on center and neutral as possible for every decision that comes our way. So we have to learn how to process things much faster emotionally.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. And again, every time you say something, I'm like, well, that applies to me. I believe I'm a pretty calm guy. I know I come across as excited and enthusiastic, and that's the way I like to live, but I'm actually a pretty calm guy. There are certain things that upset me, but I do find that sometimes I'll have some type of an incident. I don't know, something happens at the grocery store, and then I'll be in my car and I'll be reworking the conversation. It shouldn't have gone like this. And why did they do that? And so, yes, I don't think it's killing me, but clearly better to let that stuff go quicker rather than longer so that we can get back to that place where we can function optimally. Yes.
Well, I just always want, like, even for you, right, Jeff, I want you to be in a place where you feel like you have so much control and so much energy and so much focus on the things that matter the most to you, because it's not a bad thing that you got upset about something that happened in the store, right? It's just, you're burning a lot of your neurochemistry on worrying about what that conversation could have, should have, would have been. And most of us get stuck in the should haves all day long. Oh, I should have done this, or I should have done this, or I could have done this better. That's just a waste of our time. I want everybody in their genius as often as possible with as much focus as they can get.
Kind of like being upset at the guy who just cut you off. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. He doesn't know I'm sitting in my car going,
I know. Sometimes it's good to get some energy moving, but the thing that really opened my eyes to this was the second you feel anger in your body, the anger stays in your cells for 3 days straight. So I'm always trying to get myself out of anger as quick as possible because I'm like, anger as an emotion is not serving me. I don't want it to be in my cells because, anger in your cells, what does that do? Kills off more cells, restructures the cells. I'm like, I want cellular reactivation to be as positive as possible. So when I heard that, I was like, okay, I have to start doing a lot more on the emotional mastery side for people, because if they stay in those negative emotions too long, the body stores it and causes illness or disease from it.
Wow. Gotcha. Yeah. I've taught myself, I don't know if this is right or wrong. It just works for me. Driving is a thing for me. And I hate when anybody's going slow in front of me. I hate people don't turn their turn signals, stuff like that. But when I find myself getting upset because somebody's acting like an idiot, I just start doing deep breathing, like very deep breathing. And I find, like, usually within a minute, it's like, all right, go ahead, asshole. I don't care anymore.
Right. Well, that's perfect. You found something that works for you. Everybody has something different that works for them. So we just have to give people a lot of different tools. That way you can pick and choose what works for you and make it custom to you.
There was something else you posted that I was interested in. You said, stop negotiating with the version of you that keeps you playing small. Tell me a little bit about that. What's that negotiation look like, and why are we doing it?
So a lot of us do this because we have some hidden trauma around playing small in our lives. Usually it goes back to our parents and how our interaction was with our parents. So if either of our parents ever said to us, Like I'll use an example from my own childhood. I remember my mom said to me once, she's like, well, Annie, people just don't care about that. You don't have to share that kind of stuff. People don't need to know your whole story. And I just remembered that as a kid. And I was like, oh, I should stop talking. I should not say much. And so for a long time, I didn't share how I was feeling, what I was thinking. I didn't share anything. And people started thinking I was like this little robot that didn't have a personality. Right now, on a microcosm, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but you play that out over the years, and suddenly you have a very robotic entrepreneur who is not connecting with clients or with their teams or with their, their parent or their co-parent. So there's so much here. I just think that we tend to reduce as much as possible our ability to be at our best because our subconscious wants us to feel safe. And what feels safe is us playing a smaller game, because on the other side of that small game is the unknown. The subconscious hates the unknown. So the subconscious is going to try to keep you in this box as often as it can so that you stay safe, but you are often miserable because you're not going after what your dreams really are or who you know you can be. So that's why I tell people, don't play with that older version of yourself you have to negotiate consistently and be like, oh my gosh, look, it's my 7-year-old trying to take over. I don't want to be like that. What do I want to be like? Can I tell the 7-year-old it's all going to be okay? So that's sort of what I'm talking about when I bring up that renegotiation.
So it's kind of like the difference between the person who's still operating of something that happened at 6 and the Navy SEAL says, I can do anything.
Correct.
There's nothing that stops me.
But here's the thing, our subconscious brain, the 11 million data points, right? That's subconscious. Our conscious brain can only hold 40. So a lot of the work I do is I bring the subconscious and the conscious brain together for people so that it's working in harmony, because most people have spent 30, 40 years of their brains not working together, these two separate parts of the brain.
Got it. Yeah. And something that you talked about just before, a lot of us here when we're kids, no, you can't do that. That's for somebody else, but not for you. And there's it's not a quote, it's a couple of paragraphs. It's from Marianne Williamson's a Course in Miracles, and it's Our Greatest Fear. You familiar with that one?
Yes.
And she says, who are you not to shine?
Correct.
Who are you not to be great? Who are you not to be big? I could read the whole thing, but
logically, we all want that, but emotionally and in our bodies and in our neurochemistry, our subconscious is telling us a very different story. So this is why logic as an answer to trauma isn't going to work necessarily. It'll work on one level. It'll help you be aware of things, but it won't move the energy out of the body to make it easier for you to function. The logic is only one piece of a 4-step process.
And it's many of us, I'll just raise my hand again, imposter syndrome. I'm really good at what I do and I get applause and acknowledgments. I'm paid well for it, but there's still always that, why do they listen to me? I'm just a joker who happens to be in the right place at the right time. And I also know I'm a genius at what I do. And I'm not calling, I am a genius at what I do. But there's always that piece. I'm such a clown. How are you listening to? In fact, I do stand-up comedy just so people realize what a clown I am and get the acknowledgement that way. There's something else you posted about, which I have to ask. It's about a month ago. You posted that most people struggle with saying no. Why are so many of us people pleasers?
Well, I think it all goes back to our relationship with our parents, to be honest, right? Because a lot of the way our 7-year-old brains are created goes back to what we could say yes or no to from our parents. And most of us had very specific parental experiences, right? Like our parents told us no a lot. That was part of that generation. And so I think because our parents told us no, and there's a part of us that's like, well, I just wanted to say yes. I wanted everybody to say yes. As we get older, we tie saying yes to other people with feeling needed, feeling wanted, proving ourselves, receiving validation. So it's easier sometimes to people please than it is to set a strong boundary and know ourselves so well that we're not willing to bend or break for anybody. So when I talk to clients, I'm like, if you can just ask yourself these 5 questions before you say yes to anything, and I'll have them say, okay, how is this going to impact me physically if I say yes to this? How is this going to impact me emotionally if I say yes to this? How is this going to impact me intellectually if I say yes to this? How is this going to impact me spiritually if I say yes to this? And lastly, is there anything else I would rather do with my time? So we need to pause before we say yes in order for our mind to calm enough and to be in a non-fight or flight state. We don't want it to be on autopilot that we're saying yes all the time, but that is the pandemic that we're experiencing. We are on autopilot saying yes because we think it'll help us prove ourselves, receive validation, or get something. Where in reality, if we just pause and we're like, I don't know if this is going to work for me, let me take a moment to think it through and feel into if this is really the right choice. But we're on such a hustle, grind, urgency based culture that most of us don't take that time. If we did take that time, people pleasing, I think, would drop significantly. And I think imposter syndrome, there's a lot of that people experience. And if you look into the world to try to figure out what's the solution for this, people will say one of three things: talk to a therapist, have more daily gratitude, have a gratitude journal, or just recognize this is a part of who you are. That doesn't solve it. What solves it is when you take that little 7-year-old and you take the adult self and you merge them together so they can work as one.
Yeah. I know for me, part of it is that my psychology is that if I don't do the right thing for people, if I don't say yes, that they're going to leave me. My dad was gone at a young age. And so, that's certainly part of my ruling psychology. And I'm pretty sure I've shared this before on this program, but I'll tell you this because it's so funny anyways. So my best friend, who has now moved away to Florida, but he used to live here on Long Island also. And I live a block from the ocean. The ocean's a block from here right now. And we both love the beach, and he owned his own company. I own my own company. He would call me many a summer morning and say, hey, can you get away this afternoon? I'm going to pick up some sandwiches. I'll bring you a turkey sandwich. We'll go to the beach. And he'd come over and we'd eat turkey sandwiches on the beach. And must have been 15 years in when he called me up one day, can you go to the beach? I'm like, yeah, man, come on. Let's see. He goes, great. I'm going to pick up some turkey sandwiches. I said, awesome. I'll see you later. And I hung up and I said, I don't like turkey sandwiches. I don't like turkey. I don't like turkey sandwiches. And I've been eating them for years and years because that's what he was picking up. And the sudden realization came to me that, why don't I just tell him I don't like turkey sandwiches? And I kid you not, I called up my best friend, and this is from high school. So this is a guy who knows me intimately for years and years. And I'm stunned that I'm even saying this to you, but I don't want a turkey sandwich. Can you pick me up a pastrami sandwich? He goes, yeah, sure. You don't like turkey? I'm like, actually, I don't. He goes, Jeff, I've been bringing you turkey sandwiches for years. I said, I know. And there's something that stopped me from saying, I don't want a turkey sandwich. I thought you wouldn't be my friend anymore. And he laughed hysterically. He goes, you're the biggest idiot in the world. I love you. Nothing could stop me from loving you, especially that you don't like turkey.
But this is what people do. This is what we do, right? Because the 7-year-old has told us this person will leave me if I tell them I don't like turkey. Right? It's such a small thing, but this happens to everyone. It's not just you, right? Every single person has a story that tells them that if they stand up for themselves, if they set a hard boundary, if they tell people what they want, they will not get it and they will be abandoned. And this is one of the biggest things that I think if more people would understand, that people can only love you when they truly know you. Like, people cannot love you if you're always saying yes to them. It doesn't work that way. Self-sacrifice is not the answer. It just pushes you into a place where you don't even know yourself, right? And this is a small example with the turkey, but it's also big. It's a huge example, right? So I love that you share that, because for anyone listening, if you know there's something that you've always wanted to clarify or tell someone like, nope, that's actually not me, the more you can pick up the courage to have those conversations, the more people will actually love you. The right people will actually love you.
I'm just making a note that I think I have to post about the turkey sandwich.
You do. That is I love that story.
I mean, it was a breakthrough, and such a.
How many years? How many years did you eat turkey sandwiches?
Years and years of dry turkey sandwiches that I wasn't enjoying.
Dry turkey's the worst.
Oh.
Jeff, I'm so excited. I love this story. See, this is the thing. This story makes me care about you more because it's like a beautiful vulnerability. And when people hear that, they can connect with you on a deeper level, because almost everybody in the world has felt that same way about something.
I look forward to hearing from you from a DM saying, hey, Jeff, I spoke to 100 people today. I told them about your turkey sandwich.
You wait. I'm going to bring it up.
You have my permission 100%. You can use me by name if you'd like to. What's your best advice for people who are done playing small?
Well, I think the best advice for people who are done playing small is either find yourself someone who can help you identify the root pattern. Because if you identify that root pattern, you're also going to identify at the same time, if you have a really incredible expert, you'll identify what your gift is for humanity. Because we're all here to bring a gift to humanity, and almost all of our gifts come from our traumatic pattern or that root lie that we've been telling ourselves since we were 7. So a lot of entrepreneurs will come to me and they'll be like, I built this company for 5 years. I don't feel fulfilled. I'm like, well, that's because you haven't done the work to figure out this traumatic pattern. Now that we know the traumatic pattern, this is what you're supposed to be doing. This company was a vehicle for you to do the next thing. And they'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea that this is what I was really wanting to do. And I'm like, well, that's why we're doing this work, because your story will tell you what your gift to humanity is and where the most fulfillment will show up for you.
Mm. And you actually posted about that. You gave 3 examples. Maybe you could expand on them. One was check your calendar. I'm very big on putting everything on my calendar, but I'm not sure that that's what you meant. You also said boundaries first and upgrade your inputs. What do those things mean? Check your calendar, boundaries first, and upgrade your inputs.
So
That sounds sexual, and I don't think that's what you're talking about.
no, it's not. But I mean, for some people it could be, but I'll talk through it. So calendar, you have to check your calendar, because if your calendar is showing up as chaotic, or your calendar doesn't have anything on it that's for your own learning, development, or planning, then you've got to reset the calendar, because the calendar is an indicator of how you show up. The second piece, what was the second one again? Will you tell me the second one?
Boundaries first.
Boundaries first, right? So again, when we're people pleasing all the time, we're not clear on our boundaries. If we're not clear on our boundaries, we don't know what we really need to be in our own excellence. So you have to know your top 3 to 4 boundaries to know your standard of excellence for yourself. And that shout out goes back to Rick Green, who told me this like 15 years ago, and it took me a while to figure it out. So that was incredible. And then the last piece is about the inputs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what I've noticed for all the people that are out there that are high performing leaders, right? Entrepreneurs, driving business, hustling and grinding, we're not specific about the inputs into our system. We're watching a bunch of stuff that doesn't serve our subconscious brain. We're listening to inputs from people that do not matter. We're basically flooding ourselves with technology and also news, which is not super helpful for staying in a positive mindset. So what I tell people when they first start working with me is I'm like, we're going to cull back and get rid of a lot of these inputs. And I'm going to have you watch only comedy for a whole week, because the comedy will help rewire your neuroplasticity to a much higher level faster than anything else. And if you think about it this way, the only thing we can control is what we choose to focus on and give our attention to. So if we're allowing tons of inputs to come in and none of those inputs are in alignment with what we want to create in our world, then we're literally sabotaging ourselves. And the 7-year-old is allowing it to happen to keep you safe and in your box. So that's why I talk about those 3 things.
So is there any advice you have for someone like me who feels that I absolutely have to stay up on what's going on politics, because the world is crazy as far as I'm concerned? But I also know that what you said is 100%. I mean, you could be Tony Robbins himself, who I consider to be the greatest motivational speaker maybe ever. And I'm sure a very positive guy. But if you're listening to what's going on in the world all day long, it's hard to stay up. So how do we balance between staying enough up to date so that we know what's going on and not kill ourselves emotionally?
So what a lot of my clients do when we do this input audit with them, they will literally find either emails that come in once a month that gives them that update on the politics side, or once a week, and they will set aside half an hour on a Friday, and that's when they'll look at the things, because they know if they do it on a Friday, it's not impacting their work week. They're not derailing themselves by worrying about all these different things. But on Friday, they have the whole weekend to process it. And so it's a 30-minute review of key emails that they have hand selected that give them the summary of what's occurring in the world. So we just like to be really careful, because anything you put into your brain is going to either derail you or keep you more focused. So I'm psychotic about what I allow myself to watch, listen to, hear, or even talk about with people.
So it sounds like you're suggesting it may not be the best thing for me to be listening to the news every time I walk the dog.
I would say 100%. I would love to get you off of the news and get you into listening to something that is more for, I would say, like, I know this sounds strange, but for you, I would have you listen to a lot of comedy for you, right? Because you're already in that space and you're already—
I do that too.
I think that's a better plan, because that's going to heighten your emotions and give you a much higher neural pathway when it comes to joy and purpose. And so I think if we can get you off the news, you're going to see a dramatic change in your energy, as well as how focused your brain is.
Yeah. I switch back and forth when I'm in the car. It's either the news or Netflix is a joke, because I love comedy and I love listening to comedians. And what's better than laughing? I mean,
nothing is better for the body than laughter. It really isn't. So
how about dogs?
Dogs are amazing. Dogs are wonderful too. I love animals. But I do think, Jeff, if I could ask for one thing, to turn off some of that news for a bit, because I think that you have so much in your brain that is being taken up by the news.
It is.
I want more of your genius in the world.
So if somebody is looking to reinvent themselves, do they have to get rid of everything? I mean, do they have to burn everything down and start from scratch? Or How does that work?
No, you don't have to burn everything down. The way I start with most people is we just upgrade the operating system, right? So we look at that old operating system. I explain it in detail to the person so they can see it. And most times the person's like, let's get rid of all this stuff. Like, I don't want any of this stuff impacting me. And I'm like, great. So we're going to get rid of the operating system. Doesn't mean that we don't have a full appreciation for that operating system and how it got you to here. Because everybody's operating system is different, right? Some people's operating systems drive them to 10 million in revenue and they're still unfulfilled. Some operating systems drive you to 2 million in revenue and you're still unfulfilled. All we know is that when you're driving to a large number in business, and you still feel unfulfilled, that's when the operating system is showing you its ceiling. And so that's where we go in and we just look at it, we unravel what it looks like, and then we basically start rebuilding it. So we're not burning everything to the ground. We're just appreciating what got us here, won't get us to the next level. Then we set some new structures in place. It's basically like creating a new scaffolding for the way you think and the way you feel and the way you engage with your body and your nervous system.
There was another post you made recently that I found interesting. What does quiet power over loud cliches mean? I think I got it, but could you expand on that?
Well, I think quiet power is the kind of authority that doesn't need performance validation or pep rallies, right? It shows up as consistent, positive behavior, having a calendar that matches your values, having boundaries that are kept and that work for you and make you feel powerful, having habits that regain energy for you instead of depleting you. And I think that, loud cliches, people talk about so many things in the world these days. They just are spikes for motivation or spikes for dopamine. They're not this quiet power that is sustainable and continues to build. So I think quiet power comes from within, loud cliches come from without. And I think as a culture, we have to stop looking externally for the answers and we have to start giving ourselves some quiet moments to really reflect and allow our true genius to come out. And that's what I'm obsessed with for people. I'm like, how do we get you to play in your genius more often to allow you to have everything you want in your life? And I found the fastest way to get there is to work with the subconscious to unravel these stories from when we were 7.
So it sounds like you're talking about, and I think we've all experienced, sometimes you're maybe at a big event and somebody walks into the room and you're drawn to them. You realize that they're magnetic, and then somebody else walks into the room, they're loud and boisterous, and it's like,
it's unattractive, right? And I think we're moving as a culture towards people looking for those quiet powerhouses, those magnetic personalities that are quietly powerful instead of having to be very loud. Because I found everybody who's a loud talker doesn't really have the confidence level of some of the quieter people that observe and assess and know themselves so well that they know exactly when to contribute.
I could not agree more with that part, but I think there are a lot of people who are very attracted to that insane, loud craziness.
And what I would tell you is the people that are attracted to the loud craziness are people with dysregulated nervous systems that are trying to find those dopamine hits because they think that's what's going to get them further. They're going to burn themselves out. And the quiet people that have done the self-reflection work are going to be taken over.
As somebody who works with the brain, and any thoughts on the positives and negatives of social media? I know, you look at social media and you think everybody's living a much better life than you, and everybody's a gazillionaire, and they're flying on private jets, which clearly is not everybody. I think especially for young people, it's incredibly damaging. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. So for me, social media is just a tool for connection. When I go into anything with social media, my mindset is always, I only listen to people that know me and love me. And if people don't know me and love me, their opinion has no weight and it doesn't matter. So when I use social media, it's as a tool. It's not as a way to receive validation or to receive acceptance or even to garner approval or support. I could care less. The reason why I have social media is because my executive assistant 4 years ago was like, you've created so much profound change in people's lives. How are you not on social media? I'm like, I don't really have time for it. So for me, it's really different, right? But I think the more all of us could look at social media and be like, it's a tool that we can use to build connection. If we used it for something positive, it could be a huge, benefit, but I think it sucks a lot of our time. So when I talk about inputs again, I don't spend a lot of time on social media because I don't want that input running my subconscious. I want to run my subconscious myself and have a very focused outlook on my life. So I'm not perfect, right? Not perfect, but I try my best.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, it's just you're talking right to it. I am on social media, and I do occasionally get into, let's say, discussions about politics. And I was debating somebody the other day, and her response to my post was, "You're an idiot. You're a moron. You're unsuccessful, and will always be." And I wrote back. I said, Perfect answer. I no longer care about anything you have to say. Name calling, not interested. You have constructive criticism, I'll talk to you all day long. But once you did that, I no longer, actually, I said, I don't give two shits about what you have to say anymore. I have no space for that. That's 6-year-old stuff.
Yeah.
I'm well past 6 years old. I have to ask before we go, and I know you're not a sales expert, but I always ask people, any thoughts on prospecting? How do you attract business to you?
I think what I've learned, which is interesting, this isn't what I would have said 15 years ago, but what I've learned is the energy that you hold and even the way your voice sounds can attract people or push people away from you. So I've spent a lot of time trying to make sure I'm as congruent as possible with everything that I say and that I do and how I show up, because I feel like the more congruent you are, the more attractive that is and magnetic for offers. But I do think that more people need to work on enrolling people emotionally and not just looking at a sales thing as a transaction. There's a long-term relationship there that can be fostered that's even more impactful, I think, as you build sales connection with other people.
I love the word you just used, enrolling. And it's a word I use all the time also, because I also have a 90-day program. I don't know what it is about 90-day programs, but for what I call the accidental seller, which would be like you. You're an accidental. I'm a professional salesperson for 50 years, but I don't think you went into coaching to sell. But
Absolutely.
unless you can sell, you can't help people. You can't serve people. I have a 90-day program specifically for people who don't like selling, think salespeople are sleazy, hate asking for money.
Everyone who needs that needs you. I gotta say, the more I get to know you, the more I see you in the world. I'm so thankful that people have that place to come to, because selling is not something that is authentic for most people, and they have to make it authentic to themselves. Otherwise they won't be able to sell. So I love that you have that course. I cannot wait to send more people to you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That would be lovely. And the same here. And selling is not what most people think it's about. It's not about convincing, and it's not about persuading, and it's not about talking people into things. It is being genuine and authentic and truly curious, because asking questions is the key to selling. And when you're authentic and truly come from a place of service, because I believe selling is serving, that's when people are attracted to you. And that's when, as opposed to selling, you're enrolling more people to become your client. I often say that I don't sell anybody. And of course, I am selling people. I'm not being unrealistic, but the way I sell is I attract people to me who are interested in potentially doing business with me, and have a conversation with them. And then at the end, they either choose to do business with me or not. And I'd love to talk about this all day, except we're running out of time. So before I go, I'm going to share my screen. Would you tell people how they can reach you if they're interested in working with you, want to talk to you, want to find out more about what you do?
Yes. So the easiest way right now, and everything is about to launch. So if reinventionxo.annie is not fully lit up yet, that's okay. It's coming this week. So just stay tuned. You can reach me on Instagram. You can DM me there. I think right now it's northstarleadership.annie, but as it evolves this next week, it'll be reinventionxo.annie, because again, everyone in life needs to reinvent themselves. Otherwise we get stuck in all the old patterns.
And is there a phone number you want to give out, or an email address? People who can see this can see that I just shared on the screen, but this will be a podcast in about a week. And for people who will be listening, how can they reach you?
I think the easiest way to reach me is you can always email me, Annie, ANNIE, at reinventionxo.com.
Annie Yatch, you are delicious. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance so generously today. And I'll leave, as I always do, with these words. Gang, please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. Get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. For those of you who live near me here in the Northeast, get out that snow shovel, because bad things are coming, but stay safe. Thanks, Annie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.